Hello and welcome to the Girl Up Global Leadership Summit 2021. We're here today at the Intersectionality of Climate Justice panel to discuss with Vanessa Nakate, Ridhima Pandey, and Karina Penha, three climate justice activists from around the world. My name is Bridget Lord, and I'm also a climate justice activist and a Girl Up Club leader for Girl Up. Our first question today is, why is climate change far more than solely an environmental issue?
Yeah, I can go first. I think that climate change is more than an environmental issue. I feel like it's more than weather, it's more than statistics. It is about the people, because the communities and people who are being impacted right now, and it's not just about the floods or the landslides or the droughts that we see. Individuals, families are greatly impacted. You realize that we won't be able to eradicate poverty without climate justice. We won't be able to achieve zero hunger if climate change is leaving millions of children, millions of people across the world with nothing to eat. We won't be able to achieve gender equality if climate change is affecting many girls across the world, forcing them to drop out of school, forcing them to get married while they are still children. So it's important for people to understand that climate change is not just an environmental issue. It's an issue that is impacting lives right now. It's more than weather, it's about the people.
Yep, I can say I totally agree with what Vanessa said. And at the same time, being in a country like India, even when girls are treated, so badly here, and once they are getting, the opportunities to go ahead to study and, to make their careers and stuff, what's been happening is they're facing flash floods or, all the effects of climate change. It just makes them and bounds them to stay at their homes, because most of the time they lose their houses, or, there's something that, they do lose the income source, the source of income that they do have in their family, and they end up, at their homes working for their families, serving them. And most of the time in the rural communities and the indigenous communities, what really happens is that they're starving, they are suffering from not getting proper waters. And instead of girls going to schools and studying, what they do walk to several kilometers just to fill up water, in terms of, providing proper water to their families. So it's just like climate change is more than just me or India facing some flash floods or landslides or droughts, but it's more than, everyone facing up a thing that is affecting us now, and that's going to affect us in the future as well. And even though we can somewhere try to prevent or at least, decrease the effects of any natural disasters that we are facing, but if we don't do something right now, we won't be able to, do something for climate change. Then what would be left with us is just, suffering and, the struggle to just survive on this planet.
Yes, I agree. I think that the climate crisis is about the life. So when you talk about the life, in many ways, you can talk about everything. I think that some years ago, a lot of people think that the climate crisis was about the trees and the animals, that we know that is very, very important. But today we are here to talk about the life of the woman, the life of the children, the life of our parents, our grandparents, everything that has life. Because I think that today we can talk about justice in this issue. And I think that we cannot separate. You cannot separate the social and the environmental when you talk about the climate crisis. And we are living emerges. So emerges is about everything. You need to make everything that you can do to try to resolve this, or to think about how you can improve it, or make some suggestions to change the mitigation and the adaptation. And the climate crisis is running fast. So we need to talk more about how we can live with this. And we know that every crisis don't affect the people in the same way. And we know that there is a lot of people that are always the most affected people by every crisis, and the climate change is one more. So I think that the climate crisis and the climate change, it is about how we're gonna make the difference in many inequalities that we have in the world today.
That was all beautifully said. I think that I completely agree that it's about plants and animals, but it's also a social justice issue, and it's incredibly important to be discussing them. So why do you think that the youth-led climate justice movement has had such a strong global impact? And how do you think that we can continue that?
Okay, so the youth climate movement, I think it has really been able to do all this because young people are speaking truth to power. Young people are fronting the science of climate change, and young people are talking about communities that are being impacted right now. Like what Karina has said, we may be facing the same storm of climate change, but we are definitely in different boats. So if we see that the present is catastrophic, if we see that the future is scary because of the inaction of the leaders, then this definitely pushes us to speak more and demand for a future that is sustainable for all of us.
Yep, I can say what Vanessa said is totally correct. And what I can say is that, I feel like the movements that have been led by the youth, especially, in the last few years, it has just been mind-blowing. Because somewhere, at the point when we all realized that how bad climate change is affecting us right now, it just gave us a glimpse of that our future is going to be very, very scary. And it's just going to be, we can reach to a point where, it's just about what I feel. It's about life and death, and no one really would prefer death, of course. So it's like for our lives, we're fighting. And I guess as being the youth and as being the ones, those who are most affected and, those who are going to be the most vulnerable in the future as well, I guess youths are somewhere, we don't really seek of any other interest of ours rather than, just protecting our future in these movements. And that's sort of what make these movements a lot more powerful. And I guess what the policymakers are doing, our world leaders, what they've been doing, they've just been thinking about their profits and about their, about their GDPs, about their economic growth and about money. And that what has led all these destruction to happen. And as being the youth, us being just thinking about how we can survive and how we can make our planet to be in a better state, it just makes our movement more powerful. And I guess if, because in my country, what's been happening is we still don't have that much youth participation in the youth movements that's been led right now, like Fridays for Future. So it's just like what I feel is that if more and more youth would be involved in this fight, I guess it's going to be more and more larger than rather than just being youth, but we also do want experts to be with us. We also want the governments to identify this thing that we are not fighting for our profit or something. What we are fighting for is something that's going to benefit all of us in this entire world. And it's not just about us. It's not just about it's not just about our profit. It's about our planet. It's about the biodiversity. It's about the other sort of species that those who are living on this planet as well. And if we do come up together and if we, just carry on the work that we are doing right now, I guess the movement that we all are having right now is going to be at the top of the world. And I guess we would be able to bring up the change.
Yes, totally. So I think that the youth movement has this power. It is very strong because I think that we have the courage to speak the truth. And because we are the generation who grew up, listen about the greenhouse effect and discover that it is not just about us. It is about our lives in different ways. I think that for me, for Vanessa, for Ridhima, it is different the way that we can talk about the climate change in our communities, with our families, with our friends. Here in Brazil, we have a lot of problems, environmental and social problems, and we have a lot of things to do. I am part of the climate movement for almost 6 years. And we how can I say, we are just seeing looking the difference in the movement in the past 2 years. I think that 5 years ago, we are just a little group of youth people, and we are talking about the climate change, but we are not in the decision-making places. So here in Brazil, we trying to change it. And how can we take more youth people, indigenous people, Black people from the peripheries to the COPs, to the UN conference, to the places for when the leaders are, because we need to talk about this to them. And in the past 2 years, we could see the movement growing up and get a lot of power. And it's amazing because today we have a movement more plural. And I think that the climate debate needs to be plural. And we need to be as we are. And here in Brazil, we are a lot of kinds of youths. We have the indigenous people that are a lot of people. They are very different. We have other communities. We have the people from the Amazon region. And today we are working together. So today we can put a lot of different people to talk about climate change and to say that we need to make this in this way. And today we can, with the youth leading movement, talk and the people, oh, okay, maybe we can listen you. But I think that today a lot of people is listen the youth, but we are not yet when you need to stay. But I think that we are doing this way. So I'm very happy to stay here and listen the girls and knows that in many places around the world, we are talking about this in different ways, but in the needed kind of debate that we need to have in our communities.
So the next question is, what does a sustainable future look like for you?
Well, to me, a sustainable future is a happy people and a happy planet. And a sustainable future is climate justice, it is racial justice, it is social justice. Those are the words that I can use to describe it in the simplest way possible. Because if there is racial justice, if there is social justice, if there is climate justice, then that means we will have a happy planet, and that means we will have a happy people.
Me too, Vanessa. I believe in happiness. I think that we need to take more this kind of view to the movement. Because as I always say, when you talk about climate change, we talk about future. And there is a lot of people that doesn't believe more in future. But when you talk about climate change, you are talking about the future. We don't know how can we view it. But I think that the sustainable future, it is a future with climate justice, when where everybody can access water, everybody can access food, everybody can access climate education. And I think that it is a future when you can talk about dreams. Because the climate crisis affected not just the way of life, but also the future, the dreams of a lot of people around the world, a lot of youth people. So I think that in a sustainable future, the people can keep in, the communities can keep living in the way that they know that it is their right. But with respected and also listen and talk about the others, that we need to respect the different way of life, and also we need to take care of the nature and the earth and the people also.
I guess it's like us being in the same field, and we have been working in this, in this movement. We have been a part of this movement. So I guess most of us, those who are activists, or those who are social justice activists, or those who are working in these movements, we all would think the same thing. And as for me, what I feel is that we have learned a lot, and we have seen that us being human, most of us do not truly respect the other species. We are just like, it's just about us. It's just about us. It's just about a profit. It's just about our money. So what it's like, you guys have said everything, but what I feel is like, what I would love to see in my sustainable future, what I want to see in my future is that, everyone respecting each other, as Karina said, and at the same time, us respecting that environment is, an inseparable part of our life, and we have to respect that thing. But at the same time, us sort of caring for the other species, us being the voice for the voiceless, the animals, and us considering that, without them, we are nothing. Without them, we can't really sustain on this planet. And, not just thinking about our, just about our future, but thinking about, how our actions are gonna, affect the future generations, as of what, this older generation did, when it comes to, our future. So I just believe that, if everyone would respect each other, and, if there would be no discrimination, as been said earlier, I guess things would be a lot more happier and a lot more easier. And, there would be a love which I guess most of the people, or, most of the kids, most of the girls dreamed of.
I think something so unique about our generation and the global climate justice movement that our generation has built is the joy and happiness and passion that we have, and the hope for the future. And I think it's just so wonderful to hear you all talk about wanting to create a world of happiness and joy, because it's beautiful. And my next question for you all is that climate justice is clearly such an important thing that we need to achieve. And so I'm wondering what your definition of climate justice is.
For me, it's almost like the previous question, but I can just say climate justice really starts from understanding the intersection of climate change and all the sustainable development goals, and realizing that it's going to be so hard to achieve either of the goals without climate justice. And it goes beyond statistics of whether it's about poverty eradication, it's about achieving zero hunger, it's about achieving gender equality, clean energy for communities. So I think it's when people understand the intersection of climate change and the sustainable development goals, I think people will easily understand the kind of climate justice that we need.
I can say Vanessa has covered everything. So for me, very, very sort of shortly, what climate justice means to me is, a hope for my future. And it's just, to be put as simple as, everyone has said, it's just, us understanding that if we do bring changes in ourselves, and if we do bring, if we just move out from this thing, from our greed, and understand this thing that, how our greed is affecting everyone, and just trying to bring up change in ourselves, I guess people would be able to understand what really climate justice, the kind of climate justice that we are fighting for, and how they can contribute to this fight. And it's just, climate justice is just, giving justice to everyone, not being, that, okay, we are humans, we have a power to talk, we have the power to destroy up the things, but the other species can't, but the other people can't. So it's just like, we are going to exploit them. It's not the thing. Once we stop exploiting, once we stop sort of destroying everything, I guess we would be able to achieve the sort of climate justice that we all are hoping for.
Yes. I think that climate justice means justice. No? We can talk about a lot of things on this, but I think that for us, climate justice means the present and the future, and a kind of future that we need to think about today, because it can be very, very different. Depends of our actions today. And I think that it is also like a lifetime guarantee. And for me, the climate justice, it is what really makes sense in the environmental movement. Because for me, without climate justice in this movement, we are not talking about what really means and what really is happening. So, because as I said, for many times, we grow up, talk about the environmental issues and the environmental movement, but it is as something new when you talk about climate justice. But this is not new. This is what always happened. So I think that today we cannot more talk about the environmental issues, the environmental movement without talking about climate justice. I think that we cannot separate. So that's it.
That's a wonderful answer. I think they are definitely linked inextricably. You cannot separate them at all. You cannot talk about one without the other. So I'm also wondering for each of you, you've spoken a lot about climate justice in all of your years of activism. And so I'm wondering, how can each of us take accountability for the climate crisis?
Well, I love this question, and sometimes I don't love it. Why? Because, when it's asked, activists are expected to, talk about individual actions that people can take. But again, this takes away the responsibility from government. It takes away responsibility from corporations to individual responsibility. So I believe that individual responsibility is necessary, but what we really need now is system change. And this system change will start from the governments, will start from the corporations. It's important to note that there are people who are, living in communities where it's very hard to, live as sustainable as they want. It could be through the transportation. It could be through the food that they eat. It could be through anything. So I think what will really, drive the individual accountability and changes will start from system change. And again, I think it's important for us to really put the focus and, the pressure on corporations and governments to change their models, or to change, for example, with the fossil fuel industry, to understand that we don't need any more extraction of fossil fuels because we cannot eat coal and, we cannot drink oil. So I think if governments, corporations change the system, then people will be able to live, more sustainably as they want and as they should live. I think basically that's what I can talk about it. If someone chooses to, be individually cautious, it's important. And also, it's again not right to, put blame on individuals when the blame should really go on corporations and governments, because sometimes even this keeps the environmental movement. Someone who feel like they cannot be an activist because they are not living sustainably, and yet it is the system that isn't allowing that. So to me, for that question, I think the best individual, accountability is to hold governments and corporations accountable for the climate crisis and demand for system change.
Yeah, I can say. Yes, everyone agrees with what Vanessa says. It's like, I can say the same, and at the same time, what we have seen is that, the world leaders, the political leaders, what they do say is like, I could give the example of my country, is that my country has been praised up so much for, doing a lot more than what they promised in their NDCs. And, my countries in terms of, just talking about my country, they very proudly say, on the global platforms that they have worked really great on solos. They've worked really great, they've worked really hard, they're working really great on renewables, but at the very same time, they're investing more and more and more in the fossil fuels. They're investing more and more in the coal mines. They're destroying up our forest lands for diamond mines, our forest lands, and the agricultural lands, and the houses of the indigenous community that's been destroyed for widening the roads, for making up shopping malls, and for all these stuff which is not really that that possible, which is not that important. And it's just like I say this each and every single time, that those big industries are not going to give us oxygen. As Vanessa said, we can't really eat the coal, we can't, it's like in her post as well, she said that we can't really drink the oil, we can't really eat the coal. And that's the same thing, those industries are not going to give us oxygen. This coal and the oil, us digging more and more, and destroying more and more. Not us, the global leaders, the leaders, them destroying more and more is the solution, for the justice that we are working for. And as for people, it is really important for the people to bring changes in their lives as well. But until and unless the destruction from the world leaders and from the polluters is happening, our small actions wouldn't really contribute that much. So if the destruction from their side would stop, ultimately people, we many people are trying to bring up the change. So I guess if the destruction from their side ultimately stops, then half of the problem is going to be solved up. And the only thing that's going to be left with us is going to be working on our restoration and working on changing ourselves. It's not that easy, but it is somewhere less than what we contribute in terms of what their destruction contributes in terms of this whole sort of the climate change that's been happening in terms of me.
Yes, I totally agree. And I think that our actions, our individual actions is very, very important. We know that we grow up listening this, and today I think that it is very normal for us. We know we have this conscience. We know about our impact in the world. But it is very, very important that we know who is the most that have the power, the people, the industry, the governmental. We always say that we are part of the solution, but we are not part of the solution when we use less water at home. But also when you are part of the dialogues, part of the decision-making places, when we make pressure to the decision makers, and we are living emergence. As I said before, we know that. So we need to make actions big. I think that we have the responsibility as big as the problem, and we have a big problem. So I think that we cannot more feel the people feel so guilt, but we need to talk to the people. Hey, we need to make something to change it. We need to talk about the people who make the decisions, that we are looking for the decisions, that we are being part in these discussions. We want to be part of the discussions. But yes, I know, and we know, everybody knows that our actions are very important. I think that we are trying to do this. We are trying to do this, but with many, many inequalities, sometimes, as Vanessa said, a lot of people think, oh, okay, I'm not living a sustainable life, but it is not so easy. It is not so easy for different ways of life, because the people are very different. The people has different realities. And I think that the people who has the power knows about this. So we need to turn in the climate debate and movement more clean about who is the people that we need to make a big pressure today.
I completely agree. I think, as you've all said, it's been proven time and again that corporations and governments are making the most detriment to the planet, and that I think focusing on individual actions not only it makes less change, but it also takes the blame away from the people who are actually causing the harm. So thank you so much for sharing. It was a privilege to hear you speak about your experiences and your values and your thoughts today. So thank you so much, all of you, for coming. Thank you so much.